Let me read to you a passage from the 7th chapter of St. Matthew's Gospel, verses 6 and verses 12 to 14. It's the Gospel for Tuesday after the 12th Sunday of Ordinary Time. St. Matthew writes, Jesus said, "Do not give dogs what is sacred. Do not throw your pearls to pigs. If you do, they may trample them under their feet and then turn and tear you to pieces. So in everything, do to others what you would have them do for you. For this sums up the law and the prophets. Enter through the narrow gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the road that leads to destruction, and many enter through it. But small is the gate and narrow the road that leads to life, and only a few find it." That's from Matthew chapter 7 verses 6 and verse 12 to 14. Let us think of that. Do unto others what our Lord just says there. The origins of many kingdoms and civilizations are shrouded in obscurity. At times, a mixture of legend, myth, memory, some written records and law is what we have for a people's account of their origins. For instance, there is the account of the escape from the burning Troy and the tiny beginnings of the survivors on the Italian peninsula. In the fullness of time, there was the reputed Romulus and Remus, and so we have the fitful rise of the great city of Rome. In general, what is it a story of? Among many things, it is a story of the extension of power, the power of this city over other cities, regions, and civilizations. In this, Rome was remarkably successful. And before Rome, there was Greece with its story of contestation, out of which arose Alexander and his exploits. They were exploits of power over others, and the associated benefits, cruelties, and tragedies. Following Alexander, there was more. The story of man has in large measure been a story of, as they say, dog eat dog. Man needs to live with his fellows. He is essentially social, however varied be the manner in which the social dimension of man's life is played out. Yes, he wants and needs to live with others, but he beats and injures them, and they beat and injure him too. Indeed, at times it looks as if he will be beaten by others if he does not get in first and beat them. As a matter of fact, much of the life of man seems to be patterned on that of the animals. In that kingdom, the kingdom of the animals, the law of the jungle prevails, in which what matters is not right but might. In the animal kingdom, there is no such thing, of course, as the conscience. What is morally right and good is not and cannot be an issue, for there is no power of reason to perceive it. The tragedy of the human story, right back to the inspired account of Cain and Abel, is that despite the conscience, it is still, to a fair extent, a matter of dog eat dog. Man is gifted with the remarkable power of free choice, something absent from the animal kingdom which is subject to instinct. But this human power of freedom is plainly prone to be used not to recognize the equal dignity of the other, but to dominate and subject him to oneself. One of the great achievements of human society, arising from the experience of mindless cruelty and the lust for power over others, is the gradual rise of law and its sanctions, governing high and low. Man is able to see by the light of his natural reason and conscience that he should treat his fellows as he would want to be treated himself. But so very often he does not see this, and even if he sees it, he has plenty of motives for ignoring the perception. Women have been oppressed and others enslaved in societies where the most eminent intellects the world has seen were present, teaching and writing. In the modern era, enormous numbers of unborn children are destroyed because basically they are inconvenient and a perceived burden. This is defended by eminent philosophers who even go a step further and pronounce for the infanticide of those just born who will not have the quality of life they regard as a human requisite. Man is able to see that others ought to be treated with genuine and equal dignity, but often he does not see this nor want to see it, and even if he does see it, he often rejects the idea in terms of his own action. He chooses to do otherwise. Into all of this confusion has come the light of God, his divine revelation. God spoke to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. He spoke to Moses, and to Moses he gave his law, and we have the elucidation of this divine law in the Torah, the first 5 books of the Scriptures, the books of Moses. That divine law governed the actions and attitudes of the chosen people towards their God and towards one another. It included many directives peculiar to a particular era and place. But fortunately we have an overall summary of the divine law on the relations that must prevail between man and man, and this brings us to our gospel today that I read earlier from Matthew chapter 7, verse 6 and verses 12 to 14. Our Lord says, "So in everything do to others what you would have them do to you, for this sums up the law and the prophets. Enter through the narrow gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the road that leads to destruction, and many enter through it. But small is the gate and narrow the road that leads to life, and only a few find it." Now the point here is that the key to our understanding of this authoritative light from Christ on divine revelation is the person and life of the one who has given it. It is Jesus Christ himself who shows the way in what we ought to do to others. He is our exemplar and rule. We do not treat others by simply imagining how we ourselves would like to be treated by others. When our Lord finished washing the feet of his disciples at the Last Supper, he said to them, "Do you know what I have done to you? You call me teacher and Lord, and you are right, for so I am. If I then, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also ought wash one another's feet. For as I have given you an example, that you should do as I have done to you. Truly I say to you, a servant is not greater than his master, nor is he who is sent greater than he who sent him. If you know these things, blessed are you if you do them." John chapter 14, verse 12 to 17. Let us do it then.